Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Late Night Happy Hour. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky joined tonight by Anthony Slater. Does excellent work up in the Bay Area covering the Warriors and the NBA for The Athletic. You can catch him on the Warriors Plus Minus podcast. You can tweet him right there at Anthony V. Slater. And he is joining us from a very dark room tonight, but beautifully lit, just in this way that makes you look very handsome. Thanks for coming on.
I need better lighting in my kitchen, I guess. I don't know. I usually don't go on the late night podcast, right? I actually have a big window over here that, I'm usually on podcasts in the daytime. I can light myself up better that way.
I was going to say, do you have a ring light or anything like that? Or are you really just left to the devices of your kitchen appliance or what the setup in your kitchen?
I shouldn't admit this because however many months now we're into a pandemic, we can now say we're basically a year into it.
Pretty much.
It's crazy, but we are.
And I do podcasts, I do some TV hits, I do a lot of stuff, and I'm still pretty, I've kept it pretty amateur. I haven't had to set up what I need to, and I should.
Well, Anthony, if it makes you feel any better, we've been doing this for almost a year. We started at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm still doing it in front of our blinds. Like everybody else, like they work on the thing. They got the background. They put all the little knickknacks behind it, whatever. I haven't done any of that because this doubles as school. Like this is one of my kids' classrooms in the daytime.
If we were doing this at 10 a.m., I can open up this big window that's behind me, and I do it sometimes for our athletic podcast, and it actually looks like I created like this really nice outside background. But
does it feel like like that type of
on a sunny day? On a sunny day, it's nice, but. Yeah, right now it would just be pitch black.
I gotta tell you, this lends an air of almost mystery to Anthony Slater. That
Either that or like you've been kidnapped and it's an undisclosed location.
I might have to go turn on a light. I feel
it's okay.
No, I like it.
And look, I gotta be honest with you. There are times when I think a lot of people wondering if kidnapping is the way that we get people on this show. So it works out thematically. So we have to ask you. And we'll just start here because this is where Lakers fans are. This is, I think, where the basketball world is. Is Damian Jones merely the greatest Laker of all time, or is he the greatest player of all time?
Man, you guys remind me of, or this situation with Damian Jones reminds me of the Warriors during their title runs when they would get a little bit bored during the regular season and they would add one of these 10-day guys. I can remember Briante Weber. They added for some third point guard help, and he came in and had some like nice like hustle steals, and the fan base loved him for 10 days. And it was just like there was a realization that like come playoff time, irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. And truthfully, about 10 days later, I think he might have got a second 10-day. After that, wasn't on the team, but they it was the topic among the fan base. And clearly Damian Jones it's a stunner to me. I'm surprised he's still in the league. I like Damian Jones. And I watched some, he had some nice minutes against the Warriors. Watched that game the other night, and it seemed like he had a couple nice moments tonight against Phoenix. But I'm still surprised. I am.
You're surprised that when you say you're surprised, you mean surprised that he latched on anywhere, that he's actually gotten this opportunity, or you're surprised that in the small sample size with the Lakers, he's actually done well so far?
Both. He's been given up on three teams now. The Warriors obviously not only gave up on him, they traded him for Omari Spellman and gave a second-round pick because it was because Omari Spellman made a little bit less money and they were really finagling the hard cap, but they gave up a second-round pick to get off him. Atlanta gave up on him, obviously, and then Phoenix, the team they played tonight, cut him. And
right. Damian Jones revenge game.
Yes, there you go. So good for him. I'm glad he's still in the league, and he did it. It's been how many minutes has he played now for the Lakers? Like 20 total, probably.
That's 20 minutes in franchise history, Anthony.
Well, he literally doesn't miss. Like, name me a great Lakers center. Kareem missed shots. Shaq missed shots. All AD misses shots. Damian Jones doesn't.
Well, one thing I will say, that's obviously a little bit of hyperbole by you, but what I don't think is hyperbole is that might have been the greatest 20 minutes of his career to this point.
No, I mean, it's not hyperbole to say he doesn't miss. The dude has not missed a shot yet as a Laker.
What is he like?
We have a game.
He's 5 of 5.
There you
go. We have a quiz later in the hour in honor of Damian Jones and his hot start from the field as a Lakers center. But obviously, your scouting report on Damian Jones is not glowing. But let
me ask you guys: did you know about him much? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've heard his name, but like, was he on your radar at all before 5 days ago?
Full confession. I had him mixed up with Damian Lee. And I'm not the only person. It took us out. I'm like, wait, Damian Jones or Damian Jones. Okay. All right. Like when I think about fringe Warriors, I tend to think more about Damian Lee than Damian Jones.
Yeah.
If I'm being fully honest about this thing.
Damian Lee's had more important moments. Damian Jones was, do you know about his career?
All I know is that he's a Vandy guy because I went to Vanderbilt. So I keep very mild track of all the guys in the league who are Vandy guys.
Not only is he a Vandy guy, he was the Vanderbilt successor to Festus Ezeli, who was the Vanderbilt center who Festus went 30th overall in the draft to the Warriors. And had the 2016 finals moment flamed out a little bit. Then they drafted Damian Jones 30th overall center. He was going to be the next, but tore his pec in pre-draft workouts. So he basically missed his entire rookie season. Second year, just couldn't get ahead of JaVale McGee, another guy you know well, to the point that after his second year, the Warriors wanted to give Damian Jones a chance, and they didn't re-sign JaVale McGee. It's why JaVale McGee went to the Lakers. And Damian Jones started his first 20 games, his third season for a title team. He was technically the starting center on the defending champs, which at this point he's now a rotation player, I guess, for the defending champs.
That's right.
So he has rings. I think he has two. Yeah, 2 rings.
Just say it, Anthony. Frank Vogel has figured out ways to use Damian Jones that Steve Kerr, despite the 3 rings and the ones that he won with Phil and Pop, whatever, hasn't figured it out yet. I mean, just so we don't pull punches around here, Anthony.
There was a moment where he was okay, and it was at the start of his third season, and Steph Curry was kind of creating the gravity, and he was doing the JaVale McGee role, which was get a few lob dunks per game, leverage that, block a couple shots, be big on defense. He can be exploited in the pick and roll. But Steph Curry went out for a 10-game stretch, and Damian Jones started really struggling to the point that people like me were like, hey, he kind of needs to be pulled from the starting lineup. And right when Steph Curry was about to come back and Steve Kerr was saying, wait till he gets Curry back, he tore his other pec. It was his second torn pec, basically missed. What's crazy is he missed the entire rest of his third season for, a very, very serious injury. And then he was suddenly healthy during the West Finals. And Steve Kerr randomly, he hadn't played in 6 months. Steve Kerr starts him in the West Finals game 3. And he fouls 3 times in the first 3 minutes, gets under Damian Lillard on a 3, makes jumps at a pump fake and crashes into, I think it was McCollum. 3 really bad fouls. You never see him again. He goes and plays Summer League. He was the very rare.
Okay, there you go. Sorry.
Oh, okay. And then I remember them doing a thing on him, can he potentially solve it? And then they traded him a day later
so that was
Atlanta.
sort of no. So basically,
the answer was no.
If I'm understanding you correctly, the subtext of what you're saying there is that maybe we need to slow our roll a little bit on Damian Jones. Maybe he's not going to be the thing that pushes the Lakers over the edge and makes the repeat a guarantee.
I can't imagine LeBron James and Frank Vogel and that veteran team being okay with having him on the court in the playoffs, just from a decision-making standpoint, from a basketball feel standpoint. If the Lakers feel like just his athletic juice and, ability to rim protect, set a bruising screen, maybe catch a lob.
He does set up mother of a screen, man.
Yeah. He's huge. He's huge.
Yeah.
He's people just think all centers are the same size. No, there's smaller centers, bigger centers. I mean, if he's standing next to Montrezl Harrell, for example, he's just a much bigger human. But he'll over time, he's going to leave a lot to be desired. He is. And against good, smart teams, he's typically going to get played off the floor.
I had a feeling that might be what it is. Disappointed.
We're hoping that the run to repeating is all dumb teams, Anthony. And that's where Damian Jones is going to make his value felt. The Lakers' path to a repeat is all the dumb teams that made the playoffs. I'm just picturing this. I'm willing this to existence.
Do you think that roster spot should, now it makes sense for a center, right? No Davis, even Gasol's now out. In the long run, do you think that's better used on like a wing, another wing?
Yeah, ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest. You'd be, I think, because you're smarter on, I'm assuming, everything than Andy and I are. We had this debate on our podcast the other night. How much help do you think is really going to be there in the buyout market this year? Not just for the Lakers, but for everyone. My theory is because teams may be a little bit reluctant to eat money right now, just because of the finances of different teams in the league. And also, like, you look at the Eastern Conference, there are like 8 teams that all have the same amount of losses. The West, there are only a couple teams that are legit out of it if you consider the top 10. How much do you think the buyout market's really going to play into it? Like, how many people do you think will be out there this year?
It's probably going to be lesser than usual. The 10, you mentioned the 10, like that really opens it up. Like, in the West, really only the Timberwolves can say they're out of that chase right now. And in the East, can anybody? I mean, like, you could go to the bottom of the East and be like, if you suddenly got hot, you could get to the 10. Now, I think there are smart teams that are going to decide it's not worth it, particularly in a year where the top 5 of the draft is supposed to be unbelievable. So if you're Orlando or some of these teams, you should sell off. Now, that's more trade market than buyout. But the reality for the Lakers is you only need 1 or 2 because they are the premier buyout destination. To me, Trevor Ariza just seems obvious, right? Eventually.
And that's the other guy that we talked about on the podcast. Like, how much do you think he could help? He was okay. He had moments last year in Portland where he was pretty good. He hasn't played all year.
No, and he didn't play in the bubble either. Remember, he opted out of the bubble.
That's right.
Yeah, he had that custody situation.
Yeah, he opted out of the bubble. I've had conversations with Kevin Durant before during like when those Warriors Rockets playoff series, and he'd be like, Trevor Ariza is a top 3 defender I've ever faced in the league, top 5 defender. Like, now that's not prime Trevor Ariza, but that's late prime Trevor Ariza. He's past that, and it does feel like there's a point where people fall off the cliff a little bit in their career, and particularly a guy who you saw it with J.R. Smith, right? When he came to the Lakers last year, it was like, hey, he could maybe give some stuff, but he hasn't played basketball in 18 months, and it was like pretty obvious he had.
The difference, though, is, I had no expectations for J.R. Smith whatsoever. My thought was basically if J.R. is playing at all in the playoffs, something likely went really bad. But that being said, I do think one advantage the Lakers have with somebody on the buyout market, and I think we saw that last year with Markieff Morris, who ended up more important in the playoffs than I thought he would be. Assuming the Lakers are at full strength, for a team like this with their talent and depth, you don't have to be that great to make an impact because only so much is needed of you. Like, if you can do 1 or 2 things particularly well and stay in your lane, you actually can be helpful.
Like block shots and set picks like Damian Jones.
Maybe he is the answer.
Be tall.
Be really tall.
He's stuck around. He stuck around longer than the guy the Warriors gave up a 2nd-round pick to get off him for. So, Amari Spellman's in the G League. So,
head my ass.
Well, there's more topics that we can go down that list that some people would agree with you on that assessment. But, Trevor Ariza should be able to guard 2 through 4, right? And now where's the shot at? If he can just sit in the corner and make 35%, sure, he can help. The one thing is, and this is a very LeBron James, I guess MO, but he loves his weathered veterans. He loves the guys who've been through wars, who've been in West Finals, who've guarded him in big playoff games, who he knows he can trust to read a scouting report, know a scouting report, to be at practice on time, and handle everything that comes with being an NBA player. So, Ariza fits that for sure. Can he still play? I don't know, but to me, he just seems like the type of guy they would go after and could help.
And in the buyout market, it's no harm, no foul. It's like, you're either, you don't expect to sign somebody or trade for somebody or whatever. Well, maybe if you're trading, but in terms of bought out guys, it's great if they help. The exception to that is they kind of needed Markieff Morris to be useful last year.
I'm trying to remember who else was a buyout last year, but he was probably the best, the guy that produced the most off the buyout market because he had Rocket series. Remember, he had like a 3 threes at the end of a first quarter of game 2. He had a couple moments. That's all you need. A couple moments.
And it should be noted that he was terrible up until that point. Like, he was awful before they got to the bubble.
Yeah, he was the rare buyout that did enough in the playoffs to earn a second contract.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on team still this year, which is, I feel like, pretty rare for a buyout guy.
Like the Lakers, it's funny. Like, I think Andy and I have gone through that. It's the same thing. It's like, okay, Schroeder's not there. AD's not there. Of course they're going to lose. Like tonight, Schroeder was there, but 3 other guys were missing. They had no centers, and Kuz wasn't playing and all that. It's not hard to figure out why they're not winning games when those guys are missing. When you look around the rest of the conference, though, Phoenix, for example, how good do you think they are? And that's a change from our normal question is, are the Utah Jazz for real? We're switching it up tonight.
Well, Phoenix,
how good is Phoenix?
They're the 4th team in the West, right? I mean, it felt like it was like the 2 LAs and Utah trying to break in, and then under that has been a mess. But Phoenix seems like they've separated a bit from that mess. They're cementing themselves as 4, and that's something. That's a leap ahead of the Warriors, the Nuggets, who've been weirdly not great early in the season, and then everyone else, Portland, some of those, Dallas, some of those teams below. So 4th and dangerous in the playoffs because they seem to be rising. You could see growth from them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Chris Paul's done the last few years. I mean, it's interesting to see him become this guy that now is really renowned for the culture effect, because he was starting to reach this place in his career where, fair or not, people were wondering how well he got along with teammates, and whether the issues that he had in Houston with James Harden, how much of that is him, how much of that is Harden, the issues with the Clippers between him and Blake Griffin, how much is Blake, how much is him. The last few years, whether it's just right place in his career, right composition of the roster, that sort of thing, Chris Paul, the effect that he's had just from his arrival has been amazing.
Yeah. We don't talk much about him having this elongated prime, and I don't think he's still in his prime, but what is he now? 36, 37? And he's not that far off from his best days. It's been a really slow decline,
35.
right?
He's going to be 36 in about 3 months.
Yeah, like it's been a pretty steady drop from him.
I was going to say that the drop off has been pretty negligible.
Yeah. I mean, he had those Clippers. He was like MVP conversation. He's no longer that. But like for him, I agree. You didn't know leaving Houston, going to Oklahoma City. I thought he was going to force his way out there. The way he embraced the Oklahoma City situation.
I've said this before, Anthony. I feel like that situation last year with Chris Paul and the Thunder was like a reminder of the power of professionalism, like on both sides, because Chris Paul showed up, and like you said, there was a lot of speculation that he would immediately want out and be moved somewhere else. And, talking to some people familiar with what was going on, like he was very happy with the way the team approached that season. And, they were very straightforward with him with what was going on. He handled it really well. He embraced it. And then when the time came to move him, both the player and the organization could do that from a position of strength. And it was, I think, really one of those times that just everybody acting the right way and really trying to create the best overall situation worked out so well. Like, I think it's something actually that I think players and franchises around the league should be mindful of. They can use that as an example.
Yeah, Sam's been really good on that lately. Sam Presti. I covered the Thunder for a few years, and I covered the end of the Durant era there, and that wasn't a franchise and a star that knew what they were in symbiosis as far as like they were trying to win the title that season, but they didn't know what he was going to do, to be honest. Till the final hour, they thought he was still coming back, and then suddenly he was on the Warriors. And I think in the aftermath of that, Sam Presti learned how to leverage those situations for himself. Look at what he did with Paul George. He got Paul George there, and it's become pretty clear since that when Paul George decided to sign back there, he told Paul George, if there's a moment where you want to be traded, we will work with you. We will trade you. So sign the full max, but that doesn't mean you're signing to have to play here for 4 years. And after one season on that new full max, he worked with Paul George to not only get Paul George where he wanted to go, but he robbed the Clippers with Paul George as an asset. He took all their first round picks plus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's like a fringe all-star already. And then he did the same thing with Westbrook, right? A guy who he very smoothly guided the PR of letting like a franchise legend go and getting 2 first-round picks and getting Chris Paul, who was better than Russell Westbrook, it was proven to be. And then, yes, he gets Chris Paul in there and goes, let's rehab the image a little bit. And I don't mean like, the public image, but just he was thought to be a declining player.
A declining player, I think, and this has come up on the chat. Like to me, it's Quinn better points out he lost weight when he got there, a little better shape. But I think what people really worried about CP wasn't that he wasn't good anymore; it's that he wasn't able to play 80 games. And he was durable last year in Oklahoma City. He's played, I think, all but one game for Phoenix this year. And so now he's playing again. And that I think to me is where the rehab has come, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the Oklahoma City situation, he says, I think it was him saying he was going to kind of take back control of his career. Your commenter right there mentioned losing 15 pounds. It's easy to work in Oklahoma City. That's one thing I learned covering that team. It's obviously not a spotlight situation. They weren't thought to be even a competitive team. Now he willed them to like 4th or 5th seed last year, but you're just in that building, the way Sam Presti and really Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant back in the day, those Serge Ibaka teams, like they've just built a working environment. You go in there, and if you are a professional, as you were saying earlier, like you can really focus. And it does seem like he may have added a few extra good seasons on his career in that one season in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, plus the plant-based, man. Like there are a lot of guys around the league that are starting to get into that. Like the idea of going, plant-based, going vegan, like really eliminating, forget just red meat, like any type of meat, period. Like, like just getting protein from other sources. Like it was funny, before the pandemic began, I had decided that I was going to do, if possible, a month of vegetarian, or I was going to go like 2 or 3 weeks vegetarian and then like a week or 2 pescatarian, like something like that. And then the pandemic broke out, and
then he's going to become a Unitarian,
right? And then grocery stores became like Mad Max, like this apocalypse where you're just grabbing whatever shit you can get off the aisles, and it's just chaos. And at that point, I was like, okay, I don't think I can afford to be picky enough, like during this particular period, to go just produce and stuff like that. But the 2 weeks or so that I did go vegetarian before everything went sideways, I didn't lose weight, but my body felt way lighter. Like the entirety of my body felt
for sure.
You typically
the way that I hadn't before.
Have more energy too, right? Just brain power. Yeah. You wake up, you feel good, you feel a little bit more energized. It lasts longer in the day. You might not need to take like a midday nap, or you just don't feel as sluggish, which matters. And I think the reason why you're seeing it, like you go to these cities that, back in the days where I could travel to a lot of these cities, there are really good like vegan or vegetarian restaurants popping up everywhere. Dallas has them all over, which is like, you would think, Texas, they eat terribly, whatever, or even Oklahoma City, what we were talking earlier. I could name you, 8 super healthy restaurants with great food in Oklahoma City. Like that has become a popular thing in the country.
It's different now. It's so much different. I remember like maybe, 15 to 20 years ago, I dated this girl for a couple months that was like a strict hardcore vegan. And basically at the time in LA, there was one place we could go to eat. So like every single date we went on, we went to this one place. And I remember just being like, God damn, I don't know how she does this. And this relationship is destined to fail because we can't eat anywhere together. Like it was incredibly restrictive and boring. It's a lot different now. Like you were saying, like you have options if you want to do.
And also, two guys can afford to, and I think are understanding this and the value of it, like the amount, the value of the investment. If I make $26 million a year, or 18 or 14 or whatever it is, and I want to add 3 years to my career, I can not only get myself a chef and get somebody to make me food or whatever, I can do it in a way where the food's still going to taste good, even if I'm giving stuff up. And I think organizations are much better about feeding their players. I remember when Andy and I broke into the league, guys were eating McDonald's from upstairs at Staples Center in the locker room before games. Like that does not happen anymore.
Yeah. No, you go into the locker rooms, it's clean eating, it's smoothies with all the right ingredients. And beyond that, guys, when we're talking Chris Paul level, LeBron James level, they literally just have a personal chef that's at their home, making them, and they don't, to the point that these chefs are so smart about, the type of food and the diet that they just wake up and like it's ready for them. It's sitting on the table. This is like the perfect meal, and they don't have to think about like which restaurant am I going to today, which healthy spot. It's just as long as you put the money in, and they certainly have the money.
All right, tweeting out that we're talking about plant-based diets, but yeah, I've been tempted to give it another go. Like now that things have started to settle down again, and you can actually go inside a supermarket without like freaking out that you need to get out of there as absolutely quickly as possible, and stuff is actually stocked, because like it's harder in terms of just preparing things for yourself and like creating more options, and you have to try to get more, if you can, if it's possible, fresher stuff, which means you have to make sure you're using it all and things like that. And in a house where not everybody else is doing this, it's a little more work, but it felt good. Like I don't know if I could do it full time forever, but I can't lie, man. It really felt good to be doing that.
Yeah, my wife and I do a Whole30 once or twice a year, and just cutting out sugar makes a big difference. Anthony, you're younger than we are. You can probably get by with it, but as you become an older person like me and Andy, cutting out the sugar for a month makes a big difference.
Yeah, no, I've tried different stuff.
Yeah,
and
sugar. The problem with sugar is it's delicious. Tastes so good. You put it in so many things that make things delicious. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about from tonight's game, a lot of controversy around officiating.
Yeah.
You saw Devin Booker get thrown out. This is obviously a year where the referees can hear everything, but whatever he said, it was bad because he got tossed quick. Is the NBA have a referee problem, do you think?
I saw Mark Davis was the crew chief. I don't know if it was the same other two referees that were in Charlotte last week but Mark Davis was the crew chief on the night that Draymond got ejected with 8 seconds left in Charlotte up 2. They double teed him. It was like, I think Elias had a stat. He was the only player over the last 25 seasons to, in a one possession game in the last 10 minutes, to get 2 technical fouls. I mean, he handed the game to Charlotte. And Draymond took a large chunk of that criticism, as he should have. But it was still questionable to give a guy 2 technicals, for being mad about a jump ball and ejecting him with 8 seconds left in a 2-point game.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, there's been some odd ones this year. Draymond Green got ejected in a Knicks game when he was yelling at James Wiseman, and the ref thought he was yelling at him and ejected him. And then they came in after the game. The NBA rescinded the technical, admitted like, no, it was wrong. That was on the referees. But it didn't matter. Draymond Green missed the second half. They lost to the Knicks. Like it was impactful. And yeah, probably. I mean, I know Draymond's thing is he believes that refs are in their feelings too much. And maybe some of that is these empty arenas. They can hear everything now. I don't know, but the review, to me, the reviews sometimes are worse than just like the strange.
Oh my God. They reviewed everything in this game tonight. Like everything got reviewed.
It's especially in like the last, 2 minutes of a close game, it turns into a crawl with, you got timeouts, reviews, every little call. Usually coaches have saved up their challenges. So sometimes now they're challenging, which adds to it. It's wild.
Do you have any sense if that comes from the league or if that comes just from the referees being, hyper technical about anything that comes near the head or whatever it might be?
I think that the league has okayed all the different avenues they can use for review. Now they've added the 2 challenges, which there are moments where I'm like, well, I'm glad there's a challenge. That was kind of a key call, and now they got it right. But I think when you take a step back, sometimes, basketball isn't football. Football is strange in the way of like you do, how much of a football broadcast is actually the ball isn't in play. It's very little. I don't know. And whereas, it's like, guy runs, he gets tackled, and for the next 40 seconds, you can do a lot more stuff. Where basketball it's a flowing product, and when you have mostly free flowing product, and then suddenly we get late in the game, and it could take like 12 minutes to finish the last 1 minute usually, and it's just I think the league didn't necessarily foresee this, but I think they've allowed it by creating all the rules, and it does feel like referees are a little bit too mechanical. They don't, and you do hear that when you talk to players, talk to coaches, is the old referees back in the day, they were a bit more human with their, not only just their interactions, but their feel of the game. Does a call need to be made? Should you get a technical foul? Now It's just like, we are told this, we are told this, we are told this. This is letter of the law. And they don't like that. They feel like the sport is a lot more human than the referees are now.
Well, it's also too, it's like, you got to be aware, it's Devin Booker. It's a national TV game. Like, do you really need to throw Devin Booker out of this game? Like, short of him saying something absolutely awful, and you can see LeBron's face, at least on the Spectrum feed. That's what I was watching as opposed to TNT. Like, you could see, like, he said something because all the guys were like, whoa. But do you got you don't have to
one is
throw him out
okay.
of the game.
Yeah.
And it was two refs. The first ref gave him the first technical, and the other one snuck up behind him like a ninja and gave him the second one. Like, Booker did not know the guy was there. So otherwise, maybe he would have gotten away with it. I don't know which refs called it.
I actually wonder, I've been wondering for a while if they need one more ref on the court. Like, I just feel like the game has gotten so much faster, but also so spread out. Like, there is a lot of ground to cover and a lot of ground to see the way the game is played now. Like, it used to be more bunched up. And in that sense, I think like refs could keep their eyes on more things at once and even be a little closer to each other and sort of be seeing the same things, similar angles, that sort of thing. But the way I think the game is played now, like with pace and space, like I actually wonder if just these guys are not capable of keeping up in ways that they could have maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I have sympathy for NBA referees and how difficult the job actually is. In Oklahoma City, when I covered the Thunder, they literally put us on press row. It's one of like 3 arenas in the league where like beat guys sit courtside. And my first couple of years sitting courtside, and I was covering those Westbrook Durant teams, which were just flying up and down the court, bashing into bodies. 7-game series against the Memphis Grizzlies where it's like Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol out there. I mean, those were physical playoff series. And I remember several times during those seasons just sitting there during games and seeing these, bodies from up close clashing into each other on very, tough calls at the rim, judgment calls, and you got to go split second. And then right when you make the split second decision, particularly in high octane games like playoff games, immediately one side is just furious with you. So mad, in your face, yelling. Sometimes, both sides are talking, they're mad about something else. And I was like, man, this is just an outrageously tough job. So maybe it is another referee. I don't know. To me, I don't really mind. I do wish some of the rules were tweaked. I now hate the lean-in fouls. Obviously some of the Harden stuff that is kind of sifted through the league. But I don't really mind the calling of the game as much as I do like tonight the decision to eject a guy because you didn't like what he said.
Well, the other problem, and you get to just about the reviews, is like and I think the NBA, we went through that stretch where the NBA was issuing, apologies and corrections and stuff every single day, and so now and they got a ton of, why aren't you getting the call right? You have replay. And now we have these moments where my theory is if you can't see it at half speed, then whatever the call was on the floor should stand, because you're going to sit there and go frame by frame and try to figure out, if a ball was altered and like no human being can see that. Like if you can't see, the point of replay is to get it like right in a way that a normal human being, I think, would be able to see it. And if you can't, move on and just play the game. That to me would make a huge difference.
Or just make sure there's no egregiously bad calls at the wrong time. And maybe there should be like a, refereeing czar of each game who can be like, look, there's 2 minutes left. That guy clearly stepped out of bounds. Like that needs to be all changed right now. Boom, I buzzed in. But yeah, like you said, it does seem like every game, particularly every big game, if you're watching like an ABC Saturday night, it's like late in the game for 3 minutes down the stretch, you're watching like a basketball. And did it graze that fingertip? Did it not? And it's like this like frame by frame. And it's like, I mean,
the freaking Scooter film every single night.
Yeah. It's wild.
Up in you guys up in the Bay Area have a team that I find completely fascinating. First of all, Steph Curry is, I think, answering every question that people might have had about him coming into the season, despite all of this stuff. Starting there, what has been, what do you think has been going on with Steph, like at his level, to kind of get back to where he is right now?
It ties in a little bit to our conversation we were having earlier about, the shape guys can get themselves in at particular ages in this modern climate. He is, he's just like what LeBron does for his body. Like Steph does that similar stuff with all off season, like the way he eats, the way he trains, the cardiovascular shape. I'm not sure there's a player in the league that just scatters all around at all times like him. And that's how he kills defenses. I mean, he just doesn't stop moving. He's getting off the ball. He's darting here, darting there. And just, you said Schroeder, I thought guarded him well the other night, but he's got to run all over the court to guard him. I mean, that is a lot of NBA players do not want to do that. So I think and also Steph's gotten bigger. Like he's in the weight room every day. I mean, you could go back to, people have compared this season just because statistically it's very similar to his unanimous MVP 2016 season. Go back and watch those highlights. He's skinny. He's not like he's not like baby face, 22 years old in the league skinny. He's starting to get bigger, but he's much buffer now. And
I was just saying to Quinn on the chat board, because Quinn said Steph has been getting bigger and stronger every year since 2015, and nobody's noticed because of KD. He sets great screens for a guard, and like that's the strength right there. Like actually, Steve Nash used to be the same way. Like I don't know who was stronger between the two, but like there was something going on there with kind of strength that you didn't think of Steve Nash as like a buff guy out there, or like, a guy that got by on strength. But when you can set those type of screens, like clearly you're doing something in the weight room. And it's something I've noticed about Steph over the last few years. And maybe it's just subliminally recognizing that he's getting bigger, like that muscle is coming on him. But he's not like the waif that I think a lot of people see him as, just because he's known as the shooter and he's relatively smaller than most guys out there on the court.
Yeah, no, he's gotten big. He's 6'3", which, he's not a big guard, but he's not a small guard. 6'3", he's kind of like almost that fringe. And I do think that's helped him defend better. He's now, he's been part of elite defenses really the last half decade. Even this year, the Warriors, I think, are now, as we talk, are 5th in the league. Yeah. He has more to do with that than people realize. I mean, he's become I would maybe not a plus defender, but certainly not a negative. Like you feel
which is
fine.
Impressive at his size to not be a negative defender when you have that kind of offensive burden and you're bigger than he used to be, but still not a massive guy.
What are the things, Anthony, that he does defensively that you think people may not realize?
Gets through screens, knows concepts, knows scouting reports, doesn't, we were talking with Draymond about this the other day. He used to get beat back door a lot. He's, kind of have those airhead moments. Oh, sorry about that. He doesn't do that anymore. He's there on the help side. He's still got quick hands. I think he led the league in steals one year. So that's more of the stuff he used to do. Now I just think he's built and guys can't post him up. He's no longer viewed as a mismatch. And I feel like his defense was exploited a bit more back when they had Iguodala, Durant, Clay, and Draymond out there, because it was like, who can't pick on the other four, so might as well pick on him. Even if he's average, he's, everyone else here is like high level defenders. So now he's with sometimes worse defenders on the court, which I think allows him to not be exploited nearly as much either.
Oh, quick update before we talk a little more about Steph. I'm seeing this from at NBA Official, the pool report with the referees about Devin Booker.
I hate these pool reports. Go ahead.
Why was Devin Booker ejected? From Mark Davis, the crew chief. Booker received his first technical foul for continuous complaining, and then he received his second technical foul, as per rule, was ejected for directing profane language at a game official. So
they never admit mistakes in those pool reports.
Nope. They do not.
And they're vague. And they certainly will not sit in front of a press conference.
Well, you know what? Well, let's say he did throw, a fuck you at the referee. It's a national TV game. It doesn't get paid. Nobody heard it on the microphone. I mean, LeBron and those guys clearly, you saw LeBron go, woo, whoa. Can't you just walk away? He just got teed up. Can you not ignore that in that moment?
I think one thing that's not known as much to the wider fan base is how opinionated everybody, all the players and coaches are behind the scenes about specific referees. We got him tonight. Oh, this is what I don't like about him. Oh man, I hate the way he calls this. Oh man, he's super sensitive. Oh, if we say anything, he's going to get teed. Or there are referees that are very well liked by certain players, and not because I think he's going to give me, a call tonight. It's just more I know I'm going to be able to talk to him. I know he's going to keep it consistent with the way he calls this. I know how he calls the game. And I have heard over the last few years, they feel like there's a young wave of referees that are coming in. They're just, like I said, they're just too mechanical, and the players don't like the refereeing.
No, clearly. And I think you can tell much more this year. Again, no fans in the building, every little thing, but they got to figure it out. They got to figure that out. And they also have to figure out the broadcast. That's a separate
to your original question, Brian, the idea of if he said, fuck you to a ref, can you just walk away from it? No, actually, I think the answer to that is no, because I can promise you that if a ref said, fuck you to a player, that player ain't walking away easier. I mean, this is a workplace relationship. There is a certain amount of respect that I think you have to be getting and
okay, fine. Fuck you is probably a little strong. What if they just went, what about fuck that call?
I think you can walk away from that.
Yeah. You
I think
better.
I think you can walk away from that. There's a difference between fuck that call and fuck you.
No, you're right, because one is directed at the official himself. One is directed at the call the official made.
Yeah. I mean, if it was fuck that call, then I think the ref should walk away. If it's fuck you, no, Devin Booker should get tossed for that. Just in the same way that if a ref said that to a player, that ref should get reprimanded in some way by the league. That's too far.
Yeah,
you should not talk to a player that way. So,
do you think there's any sense, though, especially over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, month, or whatever you want to call it, is there any sense that the Warriors feel like they either made a mistake with Wiseman or made a mistake in not taking a chance on LaMelo?
I can tell you what they think at the light years ahead.
And would they admit it if they even?
I mean, what's admitting it? Having a press conference to be like, man, we really should have picked LaMelo Ball. Look,
I hope if they do that, they do it while sitting next to James Wiseman.
James is good. Don't get us wrong, but that LaMelo Ball guy is fantastic.
You admit, right? We should have taken LaMelo, correct? Come on.
You still would have gone. Maybe you'd be in Charlotte. You wouldn't have dropped that far. It'd have been okay.
So he, it wasn't just a super consensus pick on James. Now, by the end, they were very settled on him, but there was people in the front office that were high on LaMelo too. And, there were discussions on those top three picks. You could throw Edwards into that boat. And there was discussions about trading out, trading out to get, if it was a Halliburton or a Denny Avdija plus getting, another, a Wendell Carter or something,
right.
a piece that could help now. Marcus Smart, Miles Turner. I'm just throwing different names out there, but they, at the end, were settled on Wiseman. What's interesting about the whole Wiseman situation is if you take LaMelo out of the picture right now, what he's doing, and he does look like a superstar in the making early in his career, I think there would be pretty settled on this is what we kind of thought James Wiseman was going to be early in his career. Flashes of absurd greatness and talent and what he potentially can be, with a whole bunch of mistakes mixed in there. The fact that he's not a winning component yet, but there are nights where you're like, whoa, this could be something. And they'd probably be like, yeah, that was in an unknown draft with the top three that was pretty consensus top three, but all three, if you think about it, were came with risk, but Edwards had a bad season at Georgia, was thought to probably be very high volume, low efficiency early in his career, which he's been. Wiseman had 3 games at Memphis and disappeared. And then LaMelo Ball wasn't good in Australia.
No, he actually really wasn't.
This isn't Luka Doncic winning EuroLeague MVP
Right.
and then the NBA going, well, we don't think he's going to be good in the NBA, even though he just was the MVP as a teenager, in the EuroLeague. Like, there were legitimate concerns about LaMelo Ball's efficiency, ability to score in traffic, ability to shoot the three at more than, let's say, 30%. Now, early on, he has answered those. And I think to your original question, yeah, I mean, I think it would be human nature right now if we are going to have a 30-game checkpoint, 35-game checkpoint, whatever it is, LaMelo Ball looks like the best player of the draft. And I think if we were playing odds right now, we would all three say 4 years from now, it's most likely LaMelo Ball still is the best player in this draft. But the Warriors are not unhappy with James Wiseman right now. And they do think there's a world where James Wiseman explodes and is the best player from this draft. We'll see if that happens. But
two things. First of all, what do you think was ultimately the reason that they settled on Wiseman ahead of LaMelo? And also, too, was Clay out? Did they know
Clay tore his Achilles day of the draft?
Okay, if Clay was
which is crazy.
If Clay was healthy, do you think they would have been more likely to trade out for an established player, like for Bradley Beal, for example? Just pure.
Yeah, I mean, like Bradley Beal would have to be available for them to.
Sure, but
just like on principle. Sort of.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was discussed. Trading out was discussed. By draft day, they had decided on James Wiseman. If he was there at 2, they were sitting there at 1, and there was some rumblings that Charlotte, who actually got LaMelo at 3, was going to maybe try to trade up to 1, just give up 3 and maybe a future pick to flip 3 and 1 to get Wiseman, because they need a center. They still need a center, and the thought was they liked Wiseman, and so they were sitting there. Not only like they had decided if Wiseman was there, they were going to take Wiseman, but they were still sifting through all this stuff. And then that morning, Bob Myers morning of the draft, Klay Thompson is playing pickup basketball in Los Angeles, tears his Achilles. Calls Bob Myers as they are in the war room for this monumental pick to try to extend the franchise. I mean, this is a huge day for the Warriors. And goes, I think I tore my Achilles. And they're like, what? And so they're dealing with this seismic event that can be felt today, will be felt for the next few years, right? I mean, like it's just, and they decided in that moment. The thought then was, maybe does that put LaMelo into play because you suddenly need guard help, or does that, I remember trying to go through the scenarios myself, because I mean, it's dropped on me as somebody who tries to kind of analyze this team. Like, what are they going to do tonight? Does this change stuff? And you talk to them in the aftermath, and their thought was, we've settled on Wiseman. We want Wiseman. We think he has the chance to be the best player. He obviously does also fit a positional need. They really needed a center, and they just said, let's go with the pick. And again, I don't think they're unhappy with it, but yes, I mean, like you can't not watch Charlotte games right now and be like, well, he would fit pretty well.
But to your point, the idea that if Charlotte spent, a week before the draft trying to figure out how to trade up so they could draft Wiseman, that is an indicator that none of these guys, anybody felt like were sure things.
And they weren't. I mean, there were some draft analysts who should be credited for putting LaMelo up there and saying, yes, that's the number one player. But I didn't poll every GM, but I bet if you gave the number one pick to all 30 NBA teams, I bet it's somewhere around like 10 go here, 8 go there, 12 go there.
How much do you think the experience of Lonzo in the league, who has not been terrible, he's going to have a fairly long career, but they're not sure they're going to extend him in New Orleans. Like, how much do you think just watching Lonzo and his unorthodox ways and how they haven't totally fit influenced influenced a reticence to take LaMelo?
Yeah, that, it might have added to it. Although I think you could see early, like LaMelo has more flair to him, more confidence in the shot, even if the shot didn't go as much. It's obvious to kind of compare brother to brother. What you do like about Lonzo and LaMelo's game is just like the IQ, the basketball feel, the genius level passing, and just even defense. I mean, that to me, the best argument for like LaMelo could become good defenders. Like Lonzo's a good defender.
Yeah.
But I think what hurt, some people try to say it was, there's a character thing with LaMelo or the dad thing. I don't believe all that. And I certainly don't think that's why the Warriors didn't pick him. I just think he wasn't very good in Australia. And if you just watch the tape, it's like, this guy might not be. I thought even if he was going to be good, it would take him a few years to get anywhere over 30% from three. I thought he was going to really have trouble finishing at the rim. Like, our guy Ethan Strauss did a bunch of pre-draft work, and he was not very high on LaMelo. And part of that was like he was talking. Yeah,
I was going to say that piece that he wrote on LaMelo was terrific.
Yeah,
like even if it turns out it wasn't correct, it was really well written.
Yeah, and part of that was he was talking to Andrew Bogut, and Andrew Bogut played in Australia against LaMelo and RJ Hampton, who ended up going to Denver. And Bogut at the time playing in that league thought Hampton was better. Like, it's obvious now to say this guy was clearly seems to be the best prospect in the draft, but I don't necessarily blame anyone who thought differently. I didn't think differently. I was highest on Wiseman. I was telling the Warriors to pick Wiseman, so I certainly can't criticize them for taking Wiseman.
It's your fault. Warriors fans, direct your ire at Anthony Slater if you're not already.
Last Warriors question. Ron, this is the life we've chosen for ourselves. We're just this stuff gets directed at us, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Warriors Twitter reminds me a lot of Lakers Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like basically pick your team Twitter. Like we are sort of there.
Yeah, they're two big fan bases, so it's just like it's even more I guess monumental because there's just more people.
Yeah, we are there to be the target of venting. It's occasionally the target of celebration as well. Like you want to be included, but largely we're there to be yelled at. This season Steph is having is pretty amazing. And, the Warriors staying in the playoff picture, above 500 in the West, I think is really a testament to what Steph is doing this year. What do you think? Because this is not going to be a season, I think, unless things go incredibly weird, that they win a championship or come even close. But what do you think this season's going to mean? Like when you look back on Steph's career, because it reminds me a lot of Kobe's 2006, where you saw what he could do willing a team.
Yeah, a lot of that will depend on like where this goes, right? I mean, I think through half a season, it's been impressive what he's done, and I mean, he's dragged them now. They're right in that 5 through 8 mix. If he can get them out of the play-in, if he can make noise in the first round, if he could take somebody to the brink in the first round, perhaps even if they can get in the 4-5 and beat Phoenix maybe, and then take the Lakers to 5 or 6, like that'll look really good on him. And it's not even just the fact that they're winning. Like if you watch some of the stuff he does off ball that just gets like, I've never seen him do to defenses what is being done, where he just runs over to the wing and 2 defenders freak out and go to him, and it creates a dunk. So just that kind of just like offensive force he's been, while also being steady on defense. And I think just the way he's led this team publicly and privately should be commended too. I mean, like, he's not forcing them right now to trade Wiseman just to get him help this season. He sees the long view. I think he believes his prime is going to be extended. And that's not to say that he won't ever say, hey, it might be wise to trade this, 20, 21-year-old project for, help if Bradley Beal or something like that becomes available. But I think he's taken a patient approach. He doesn't call out young guys or call out the organization publicly, and he hasn't forced their hands behind the scenes. I think he's understood when Clay went down that this was the type of season it's going to be, and that's not easy for a guy who's at either at the peak or near the peak of his powers, and we're talking about a top 20 player ever, to willingly understand that this probably isn't going to be a title season, but he's going to go for it anyways, like as much as he can. It's impressive. I don't know, like, does it cement his legacy? I think anyone that believes that probably wasn't paying attention enough to how good he already was.
Cements it as much as I just think it's an interesting chapter, because like we think I think Steph gets thought of as this guy who, relative to the expectations, even though he was I think it was 9th overall. Is that what he was?
7th.
7th. He was obviously thought of well, but I don't think most people expected him to be what he is. Like a guy that literally changed the game. Like I know I didn't, and
his family didn't.
Right, exactly. The apex obviously comes with those 3 championships, but then you've got this just very different chapter in his career where success becomes defined in a very different way. And like I said, it reminds me a lot of Kobe in 2006. And, the context of a lot of this is different because Kobe was unhappy then and he wasn't sure about what the organization could do for him post Shaq. Whereas, Steph already got a lot of that winning done with him as a focal point out of the way. But, just again, that ability to will a team past where they have any business being, I think that commonality is there. And it just spoke to what both were really capable of doing. For
sure. And part of that Kobe story was also like he was kind of rebuilding a winning culture there then too, right? It was like that was the base level for what became the POW, secondary title teams. And that's what Steph's really trying to do. This season isn't just about like trying to prove he can, get a 4th seed and win more than, NBA Twitter believes he can basically, by himself offensively. I think he's trying to grow Wiseman. He's trying to, work well with Wiggins, teach Oubre the system, bring back a winning culture. They were the worst team in the NBA last season. It was because he got hurt, but they were 15-50. That's a puncture to just the psyche of an organization. And I think his belief is not just that he, like I said, proving that he can lift what is a lottery team to a mid-playoff team. I think he believes like this is step 1 to what's to come, which in his hope at least is that it'll be Kobe-like in the sense of like 2 titles are still to come. When Klay comes back, when, if Draymond's prime kind of extends, either Wiseman explodes and Wiggins is a stable piece, or that's flipped into something bigger that can help them. But he feels like he's ground flooring it back up.
That or just the sheer power of Kelly Oubre's handsomeness gets them, a couple rounds deeper into the playoffs.
He's just coming off a hell of a February, man.
A huge February after and a horrendous January. What's been crazy is
he was terrible.
Wiggins was great in January and Oubre was terrible. And then in February, Wiggins has been pretty bad offensively at least. And Oubre's flipped. Like they haven't been good at the same time this year.
Yeah, it explains why Steph has to keep doing what he's doing. All right, so we began this show talking about the great Damian Jones, who has not impressed Anthony Slater, but certainly
I feel bad. I like Damian. He's a really nice guy. I've done a bunch of interviews with him. I don't want to just like crush where he is. I just,
I think we're a little late for that, Anthony.
You're probably right.
I mean, when you open the show with the Lakers should just cut him on day 3.
I didn't say that. He's helping right now.
Well, I mean, you did begin with, I'm shocked he's still in the league. I mean, that...
All right, what are we doing? Trivia on his career? I actually might have some.
Yeah, that's trivia on his career. But as we pointed out, he has yet to miss from the field. He is shooting 100% from the field as a Laker.
5 for 5.
With that in mind, I've got the field goal percentages of various centers who played for the Lakers. And I'm going to give you 2 guys. You're going to tell me who has the higher field goal percentage as a Laker. This is just purely their
only
time.
Laker game.
You guys each get to answer. Brian's going to go first for the first one, then Anthony next, Brian, Anthony, and so on. We begin. Former Laker champions JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard. Who has the higher field goal percentage as a Laker?
I think I'm going JaVale.
Anthony.
I think. Well, so we're including Dwight's like first stint.
Yes.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay, then I'll go JaVale because Dwight was like still back then thinking he was like post up king, like maybe mid range. I'm going with JaVale.
The answer is JaVale. It's pretty close. JaVale 62.8%.
So
Howard 61.
I'm curious if we just looked at last season, I might go Dwight when he was like knew his role.
Yes.
Yeah. He was like 75%.
Yeah, there you go.
Dwight missed like 4 shots all year.
Tells you what his first stint was probably like.
Next, and Anthony's going to go first on this one. Jordan Hill or Tariq Black? Jordan Hill or Tariq Black?
See, this is a question YouTube probably, because I'm like not really remembering how well, I think Jordan Hill was like an NBA disappointment. Was he a Laker disappointment?
Depends.
Kind of. I mean, he had people encouraged for a little while. Is very much how you described some of these people earlier in the show.
Yeah. I'll go Jordan Hill. He seemed a bit more of a scorer than Tariq Black, but sometimes that means your field goal percentage is going to be worse because you take in worse shots.
Well, if you were asking about 3-point percentage, Andy, Tariq Black shot 50% as a Laker from 3-point land.
1 of 2.
Yeah, 1 of 2. that is exactly right. But I will go with Tariq Black.
The answer is Tariq Black.
Nice.
54.3% versus Jordan Hill 49.5.
That's bad if you're a center under 50%.
Yes.
A couple too many mid-rangers. Next, Gonzaga alums Rony Turioff or Robert Sacre. Brian goes first.
Ooh, I'm going to say Sacre.
Anthony.
I'm going to go with Rony Turioff because like Sacre, even the easy ones, he seemed like he would miss, like he could get some restricted area shots that weren't necessarily guaranteed makes.
Brian, come on, man. It's Rony Turioff.
That's true. You would not. We love Rony. That was stupid.
I've never set up Rony to
play the player, don't play the game. I understand. That was dumb.
It is 2-2 right now. Anthony goes first. DJ Benga or Chris Mim? Very close. DJ Benga or Chris Mim?
Did Chris Mim seem like he took a few threes to me?
No, I don't.
Never.
No, it was pre-3 era.
Okay.
I don't recall Chris. We covered those teams. I don't recall Chris Mim ever taking a 3.
Okay. Well, there you go. See, I got the info I need. I'm gonna go Chris Mim then.
I'm gonna say in the same way, Andy, I don't think would set up Rony Turioff to fail. I don't think he would set up DJ Benga to fail, in part because DJ Benga told the greatest story, one of the greatest locker room stories I've ever heard, when after the earthquake in LA, he went back to his hotel downtown and they told him that maybe aftershocks, which he's seen, DJ Benga's seen some things over the course of his life. But earthquakes were not one of them. So he goes and he finds out there could be aftershocks. His room was way at the top of this hotel. He goes back down to the lobby and just drives around, because he didn't want to be in the hotel if there were aftershocks. Drove around all night, basically, because he wanted to be on the ground when the aftershocks came.
Wow.
It is an awesome story. Unfortunately, though, Chris Mim
irrelevant.
Is the correct answer. 48.6% from the field versus DJ Bang of 47.5.
Both terrible, but that was some journalism right there. I asked about Chris Mim's 3-point shooting. You guys gave me the Laker inside knowledge, and I used it to get the answer right.
Yeah, people think we're just a couple dudes. No, we know all the important stuff.
Well, he was talking about his journalism, Brian, not our journalism. Anthony was talking about his own. 3-2. Anthony is up. Two guys that would play center often at the end of games: Pau Gasol or Anthony Davis. Brian goes Pau Gasol or Anthony Davis. Field goal percentage as Lakers.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, it is close.
It's really close. I'll say Pau.
So Anthony Davis didn't shoot the jumper that well this last season, and we're only talking about regular season, right? Because he was scorching in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just regular season.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Pau too, because I just think Davis didn't have that efficient of a regular season last year.
The answer is Pau Gasol, but it
Nice.
is really close. 52.2% for Pau versus 51% for Anthony Davis. So very close. Anthony up 4-3. Bob McAdoo or Mark Landsberger? Bob McAdoo or Mark Landsberger? Anthony goes first. I
think Bob McAdoo was a good mid-range shooter. Now I'm way out of my element here, but I believe that to be the case. So I'll go with him.
I'm going to say Mark Landsberger.
Oh, you should have listened to Anthony. He's 49.4% for McAdoo, Laker champion, versus Mark Landsberger, 46.6%. I think also a Laker champion.
Pick it up, Landsberger.
Michael Thompson or Vlade Divac?
Oh, man.
Michael Thompson or Vlade Divac? Brian goes first.
MT.
I feel like it would be safe for me to say that if I want to win, but I'll go Vlade.
Don't worry, we've got a plan for that.
Should have gone safe, Anthony. It is Michael Thompson, 51.4% versus 50.9%. Couple more to go. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or his protege, I'm not kidding, this is true, Andrew Bynum.
Andrew Bynum. That's right.
Kareem or Andrew Bynum?
I think the answer is going to be Bynum.
Anthony goes first. Kareem, this is...
Well, we know where he's going.
Did show your hand, Brian.
This will tell you plenty about the deceiving nature of stats if it's really Bynum.
Yes.
I'm going to...
These are actual stats. There's nothing deceiving.
Like, you know, the idea that somehow Andrew Bynum is better than now who's journalisming.
What it means.
I mean, I'll go Kareem just because I just feel I don't want to answer this question, Andrew Bynum, even if I lose it.
Brian?
I just said Bynum.
The answer is Kareem.
Oh!
6.7 versus 56.6 for Bynum.
So it's 0.1%?
Yes, it's really...
That wasn't crazy, my answer.
Okay, just to continue my questioning of you guys, did Bynum shoot many threes? Like, I remember when he started.
Oh, no, Bynum had one of the great quotes of all time when he was benched by Mike Brown for taking threes.
Oh, my guy, Mike. I love Mike Brown.
Three in transition.
Right. And so when asked about it afterwards, he said he was expanding, I mean, quote, expanding my game. One of the great moments in Lakers history.
He was very much acting out during this period. This was a period where you really felt he is going to get traded this offseason. Yes. He was doing this, by the way, heading into what was essentially like a contract year.
Right. You know that famous photo of him in Philadelphia where half the hair is braided down and half of it's in a fro? Like, this moment was like the beginning that led to that. Like that.
He was the best.
We missed Drew. Yeah.
Best. Deep reserves. Joe Smith.
Was this the last one?
Second to last.
Okay.
Joe Smith or Theo Ratliff?
Oh, Theo Ratliff never missed.
Joe Smith or Theo Ratliff, deep reserves for the Lakers. I believe both final seasons of their careers.
Yes.
Joe Smith holds a place in Warriors history. Number 1 overall pick.
That's right.
I'll go with him.
Okay.
I'm saying Theo Ratliff. Theo Ratliff took like 8 shots all year and didn't miss any of them.
Well, if you miss,
you are both correct. The answer is both shot. I am not shitting. 16.7%. 16.7%.
Looks like Theo did miss once in a while.
My memories of Theo Ratliff are much more efficient than that.
They were on the same team.
Wow.
That must have been a rough year.
We covered some really shitty teams. Really bad.
This was the team that was looking to three-peat. This was actually, they were on the 2011 team that was looking to three-peat.
Oh, you're right.
They managed to shoot 16.7% from the field, which is not good.
It's not good.
It's not good for any position, but certainly not good for their positions. Okay, Anthony is up 7-5, but as luck would have it, just this last one is worth 3 points. So Brian does have the opportunity to steal. Last question. Wilt Chamberlain or Shaq? Wilt Chamberlain or Shaq?
So I'm going first?
Yeah.
You're going first.
Shaq.
Wilt.
Brian with the comeback. It is Wilt, 60.5 versus 57.5 for Shaq. So Brian with the massive comeback over the self-proclaimed journalist, Anthony Slater.
Yeah.
I do not regret my Shaq choice. Shaq's awesome.
I mean, he still could have been awesome. You could have won the game. Like, one's really got nothing to do with the other.
Still don't regret it.
All right, Anthony Slater, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. You can catch him at The Athletic, covers the Warriors in the NBA, and the Plus Minus podcast, Warriors Plus Minus podcast. We're trying to put the banner back up here to like honor you here. People don't need to know about us. There you are. That's all the stuff that Anthony does. Tomorrow is Zach Cram from The Ringer is going to join us Thursday. Trayvon Edwards, and Friday, Steve Mason. So a fun rest of the week. Again, thanks again to Anthony for staying up late with us on an off night. We really appreciate it, and we will see everyone tomorrow.
Dank you, Nederland.